class. This class is designed for administrative users primarily. My name is Nate. I'll be your trainer today. Please at any time feel free to ask any questions you want. Put anything you need in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer or handle any questions you may have. I want to thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I want to excuse me, call your attention to evantsolutions.com. If you click on the support tab, you'll be taken to this page. This is our online knowledge base. If you scroll down to the Summer Reader section, if you click on training and videos, you'll find links to the agenda for both our 201 and our 301 session. These are always online. If you click on them, you'll see that there are links to YouTube videos that cover the same material that I'm going to be covering today. So if at any time you have to leave, or if there's other members of your library that you want to see this, you can view these either as YouTube videos, or this particular training session is being recorded and it will be archived and available online for a later watching at a future date. So please take advantage of any of our online training. If you would like to have live training on Summer Reader, again, the live training sessions are identical to this session. They are identical to the video recordings. But if you do want to sign up for an online training session, you can go to evantsolutions.com/support or evantsolutions.com. Click on the support tab and click on the calendar, and you'll see that we have Summer Reader training sessions that are available. They are free. You can sign up for them. We have one next Thursday, and we have one Friday the 27th for Summer Reader 301. That's this particular class. You'll also notice that on the 18th we have an open support time where you can get an appointment to sit down with a tech. Any questions you have at any point after the training, you can, again, on that same place, evantsolutions.com/support, you can click Ask a Question, and it will send an email to support@evantsolutions.com. That's our support address. I'm one of the techs. I'll be answering those questions as they come in. Please feel free to contact us with any requests or problems you may have as you're setting up the program. Today, as we deal with the more admin level of Summer Reader, there are going to be things that are going to be complicated depending on the particular needs of your library. And that's what we're here for. So if you have any questions at all, you can just email us, support@evantsolutions.com, and we will get to work right away on getting you the answers you need to help you have the best summer reading program that you possibly can. We believe in your library. We believe in what you're doing. We like books. We're all readers here at Evants. And we love libraries, and we really want you all to be able to develop the best, most attractive programs possible that meet the needs of your patrons where you are. So thank you all for coming today. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to refresh your memory again. Today we're going to be talking about, instead of dealing with the patron side of the program, which is over here, we're going to mostly deal with the staff side, and primarily from an administrative perspective. So we're going to log into the program. This is the Summer Reader staff homepage. Now this was covered in the 201 class that you should have taken before. We're going to click on System Maintenance. I should mention, by the way, before I begin, that we are going to have a third New Jersey-specific training opportunity, and that will be next Friday at 1 p.m. That's Friday the 13th of April at 1 p.m. So the 13th at 1300 hours, we'll be doing a special Q&A session. So if you have specific questions as you work with the program over the next week or so, if there's really some nagging stuff that you want to get at, we'll be having a special Q&A time, so you can feel free to sign up for that session as well, and it will cover whatever you want it to cover. If nobody asks questions, it'll be a short meeting. So please bring your questions and come loaded for bear, as they say, and we'll do the best we can to to get you all the help that you need to build the perfect kind of summer reader program. All right, now we're looking at the system maintenance page, and this is where, as an admin level user, you'll primarily be hanging out. As we talked in the 201 program, the design of the goal of the program is to make it as easy as possible for patrons and for staff level users to manipulate the program. We're trying to make it easy on them. Some of the admin, some of the setup functions can be complicated for the program. The good news is you really only have to do that once. Once you've set up a summer reader program, you can reuse the same program season after season, year after year. So if you get the setup right the first time, even if it takes a little effort, you really won't have that much to do in subsequent years. Again, let me remind you that the summer reader program is not just for the summer. You can use it any time during the year. The sites that have been built for you as a member of the New Jersey State Libraries are good all year long. The sites do not expire. You don't need to re-sign up for them year after year. You have access for them all year. We have custom artwork and templates that will allow you to do fall reading programs, winter reading programs, and spring reading programs as well. So you can use the program seasonally. You can use it for anything that you can really imagine in terms of private programs. Some libraries like to reconfigure everything and use it to track volunteer hours. There are a lot of possibilities and capabilities the program has. You're really only limited by your imagination and the time that you want to put into to build special use programs. So just so you know, any of the things that you do, you can always go back and reuse, and not just for the summer. All right, we're going to start with system setup. I'm going to be right up here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And we're going to start with some of the basic setup functions that we need to manage in order to get our summer reader program off the ground. So if I click on System Settings, these are kind of first use settings. There's a couple of them that you might want to change back and forth, but a lot of them are things that you'll set up the first time and they will just they'll just exist, and you'll have it configured permanently. So things like your library name, the home page. You can choose whether or not to have prize cancellation. Prize cancellation would be, there's really not too many instances where you'd want to turn off prize cancellation. The only situation where it might apply is if you felt like your staff was stealing prizes and that they were somehow canceling prizes and doing something nefarious behind your back. That's not really something that we run into very much, but it's a setting that's available. As we scroll down, I want to look at homepage settings briefly, because this is something that you might run into depending on how you want to set up your program. If you remember, you can run multiple programs at the same time. Those programs can be targeted by age. You can target them by gender. If you want, you can have a boys program, a girls program. You can have as many different programs running at the same time as you like. If we look at this active program, you'll see that the different programs are delineated by tabs along the top. Okay, and these tabs allow us to tab through the programs and change to view the various programs that are set up. There are other ways to set that up, and this is where you control that. Again, I'm in System Settings, Homepage Settings. So you see right now it's set to tabs as the default. We could set it to drop-down list if we like, and we'll click Save. And you'll see that it sets to a drop-down list from which we can choose different programs. This page, by the way, can be styled. It doesn't have to be just white. You can do different things with it if you choose. So we're going to go back to System Settings, and we're going to change that again. You can also choose to display them as links. And we'll refresh the page again. And if you want your programs to display as links, this is what it would look like. Again, this page can be styled. And we're going to go back to System Settings. We're going to switch to tabs. You can change whether your tabs are rounded or square, how many tabs fit in a row. And I believe now if we refresh one more time, we should. There we go. And our tabs have come back. So you can control how many tabs fit in a row. In this case, we could have up to 5 tabs. Then after that, they would start a second row. Some libraries do 3 tabs. It's really just kind of an aesthetic choice, and one based on how many programs you have running at the same time. Moving back into system settings, other things that we can control are regional settings, the way times and dates display. We do have summer reader programs in other countries, and so those are really more applicable for overseas users. But if for some reason you wanted to play with the time zones and the time and date you have, you can set daylight savings time if that's relevant to you. There's some registration settings that you can control. How phone numbers and zip codes are handled under international field, how many numbers the system should expect from a library card. If you're using authentication, this might become a relevant field. Authentication is just when the system interacts with your library SIP system and uses that to uniquely identify patrons based on their library card number. If you want to integrate the program with your authentication system that your library uses, that's an option that you have. It's not necessary. You don't have to use it, but it's something that's available for you. You can also choose whether you're going to have program-specific custom registration entries or not. And this is an important concept. If you click yes, all those options go away. Program-specific custom registration entries means that for every program that you set up, you can create unique registration questions. That's a really helpful ability if you're going to ask really different things in 2 or 3 different programs. However, if you have some custom questions that you always want asked, that no matter what the program is, whether it's a children's program or a seniors program, you're going to ask the same kinds of questions in either one, then you might set that to no, and you can set those for all programs at once. You see, you can choose to turn a question off, to enable it by program. So on each program, you would have the choice to enable it, or to always on would force that question to be asked as a registration question in every program. If we click edit, you see we can edit the program. So select your t-shirt size. So let's say that for all of our programs, we were going to give away a free t-shirt. Then we would set this question, and we could edit the list of t-shirt sizes if we wanted to. And that way this question is available on all programs. If I was giving away t-shirts for like 3 or 4 programs, but there was, an oddball where we didn't have a t-shirt for some reason, we could set it to by program, and that would give me the option of asking that question, but it wouldn't force me to ask that question. So program-specific custom registration entries can be something that will be a big time saver for you, or it may be something that you want to turn off because you want to have it could be something you want to turn on because you want to ask individual questions, or it could be something you want to turn off because you want to do questions that cover all programs. The review setting, these cover how to populate book jackets on reviews, if you'll remember, if the right information is input. And some of this will depend on the catalog system that you have. The settings are a little unique. That's something that if you have trouble with, you need to contact support. There are little different methods of handling each different kind of system. So depending on the way your library handles ISBN numbers and things, this is where you would enter in those particular settings. You can set security settings. In this case, we have advanced security off. If we were to turn it on, all of those options go away, and we can set those security settings per account. In this case, we're going to turn advanced security off. And a lot of these just affect the kind of control that staff members have over information, whether they have access to prize information, whether they can bulk approve reviews, what control patrons have over their information, whether they can see and delete and change their information or not, whether patrons are automatically notified for prizes. That's a great feature, and a lot of libraries like it. However, sometimes, especially if you're giving out bigger prizes, and you want to make sure everything was done correctly, some libraries will turn it off and say, you know what, we're going to just notify people manually of their prizes. We don't want the system to inform them. And again, a lot of these settings relate to prize messages, whether they show on the log page, whether the random drawing prizes show. Next, you can set the number of characters in the mobile fields. Let me say a couple words about the mobile version of Summer Reader. This is the best way to explain this is that Summer Reader has a mobile-friendly version of the site. You access it by doing the exact same thing that you would do to access the normal version of the site. This exact same link is the same link that accesses the mobile version. We don't have a Summer Reader app because a great number of software companies are going away from app building because they basically create a bottleneck. The company, whether it's Apple or Google that manages the Android store, those create a bottleneck where they have to approve apps that become very complicated. So the big thing is to make websites mobile friendly. So by accessing your Summer Reader program from any mobile device, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's an Android, whether it's an iPod Touch or an iPad, the system will automatically recognize that you're using a mobile device and send you to a mobile-friendly version of the page. There's nothing to turn on. There's nothing to enable. There's nothing to disable. It just does it. That's the way the system works. So you don't have to worry about mobile settings, except in a couple of places. There's a couple of tweaks you can do, but for the most part, the mobile version of the site just works. It's not optional. You can't turn it off. It's just something that happens. The server will detect what kind of device is used and send the patron to the appropriate kind of page. Mobile if they're on a mobile page, or regular if they're on a regular page. Now the patron themselves can sometimes set their mobile device to ignore mobile pages, and that's just a setting that exists within your mobile device. And if you personally wanted to turn that off on your personal phone or your personal iPad, you could personally do that. But that's not something that you have the choice of when it comes to mobile devices for everyone else. So if you want to limit the number of characters that appear in a field, like if you're doing mandatory reviews, for example, with logging, you can choose to have that taken off for mobile sites if you want. Obviously, it's a lot harder to type out a review on a little touchpad than it is on a full-blown keyboard. So because of that, this mobile settings thing exists where you can limit the number of characters that appear in a field on a mobile version of the site. A lot of times libraries will turn off some of the more involved fields for mobile versions. You don't have to do that. If you want, you can limit the number of characters. So maybe you're doing a 500 character review normally, but for a mobile you want to limit it to 100 or something, just to make people be more brief, since they're on a mobile device and it can be harder to type or lead to more typos. That just gives you the option of doing that. Finally, if you have a Novelist Select system, this is where you would enter that information, which again pertains to the information about books that shows up from the review page. That's all maintained from this system settings page. Heading back out now, we're going to look at language and text setup. Language and text setup is one of the more scary parts of the program. I don't think it's actually quite as hard as it seems, but it's definitely intimidating looking. Okay, so as we deal with language and text setup, there's a concept that I think is really important to grasp as we begin, and that is language and text setup can cover human spoken languages like English, Spanish, French, German. So you can have an English version of your site, an Italian version of your site, a Spanish version of your site. You can do your site in different languages. Or you can have different groups of text for different programs. For example, if you have a children's program, the language in the children's program could be like, hey kids, sign up for Summer Reader, or isn't reading in the summer fun? You know, you can have different kinds of language that you would use for children that you wouldn't necessarily use for adults or teens. The teen program could be like, reading's awesome, isn't it great? And the adult program could, you know, obviously be a little more mature. So you can create groups of text that apply to different programs. So you can have children's program, which is in English. You can have a kind of a default English language, which is in English. You can have youth language, which is in English. Or you can have Spanish, French, German. You could have Español Jóvenes. You could have Español para niños. You know, you could have language, which is Spanish for kids and Spanish for youth. You can have different text groupings according to the individual needs of the program. You don't have to. Okay? With everything else in Summer Reader, just the same way, this is by choice. If you want to just have English and anything else is too complicated or way too much work, that's fine. You don't have to create unique text groupings for each and every program. But you can if you want to. That's pretty much the kind of the theme of the day. You can if you want to. Okay? So let's work on how we would add a new text, a new language text. So let's say I wanted to create special text for my adult program. I would click Add New, and I'm taken to this blank field. So we need to start with something, right? We're going to choose Copy Language, and we'll copy English over here. There we go. Now we've populated all of these fields with the language English. Now, if I wanted to, I could call this Adult 2012 Text. Okay? And it's just some kind of name that helps me remember what it is. Then I can go through and change this. For example, I can change the language that appears on these buttons. Say I don't like the language forgot your login info, and I wanted to make that button say Red Banana Firecracker. I don't know why I'd want it to say that, but I can. You can go through and change forgot your login info to Red Banana Firecracker. And I'm just saying that sort of facetiously to help you understand the kind of control that you have over the very language. As we're using this page, I want you to note the different features. Between the asterisks is a description of what the language refers to. So the text and Sign Me Up button on the Patreon homepage. Okay? So that tells you what it is you're changing. The language you actually want to change is between the quotation marks. And again, let me remind you, if this seems overwhelming, if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to change that language, you don't have to. Okay? You don't have to mess with this. But if you want to, you can. So anything between quotation marks, I can change. So I could change Sign Me Up to Give Me an Account or whatever I wanted. You want to alter only the text within the question marks. If you scroll down, you'll notice, especially in the prize message section, there are some fields with little carets. This is the prize message that displays on the screen when a patron wins a prize. Congratulations, you are eligible for the following prizes. Now look, between the carets, it says prize eligibility. The carets indicate that that's a special system tag that will import the specific prize that you've set up for the program name program. Please contact the library, and that would be the branch that the patron's a member of, to claim your prize. So if you are altering text and you see these little carets, if you changed what's within the carets, the program won't auto-populate. Okay, it won't fill in automatically the information that's in the text section. So it's best, again, when you're changing text, only work with what's between quotation marks and work around anything that has carets. If you want to edit existing text, I should note, by the way, if you've made a bunch of changes to your text and you've done the first field, the second field, and down here you did something crazy and you typed in a bunch of stuff and you made a big mistake, you don't have to lose all the changes that you've saved. You can click Load Default just for that section, and it will only change the text back to the default that's in this section right here, corresponding with the button that you pressed. And you'll see it will reset this section back to the default. So if you've made a mistake somewhere along the way, you can save just that particular section. I'm going to click back for a moment. If you want to edit existing text, so let's say we wanted to change something within the children's program, we click here. When you first come to this page, obviously there's so much information on it. It can be hard to find the exact text you're looking for. A good shortcut is to hit the Control button and F on your browser, and you'll see down here in the corner, I'm using Firefox right now, but it'll appear somewhere on whatever browser you like to use. I can have a search box. So if the text I wanted to find was registration, I could click Next, and every time the word registration showed up, it would jump immediately to it and highlight it. So in this case, let's say I wanted to change the wording of successful program registration. I would just type in successful program registration, and any and all instances of that would be highlighted, and I can click Next to toggle between them. And then always at the end I would save any changes that I've made. So that is how you change and alter the text on your Summer Reader program. And you'll see you can change the button text, what field labels are called. This is a field label right here. So if I didn't want that to say username, it doesn't have to. Messages that pop up, the wording on pages, or what pages are called. So if I click on Sign Me Up, this page is called Register for Dream Big, Read Early Let. If I wanted to change that language, I could change that language. I could change this language. I can change any of this language, all stemming from the language text setup. Okay, let's take a break for a second. Let me ask, does anybody have any questions over either the system settings or the language text setup? Is this clear? Is there anything that I can clarify? All right, we'll move along. Give me a little stretch real quick. Stand up. If you need to, stretch out. We're about a third of the way home. We got a long way to go still. Again, these videos are available online, and this session will be available afterwards. So if anything happens and you have to miss the end, that's totally fine. You'll be able to pick it up at some other time. Let's take a look real quick at prize setup. If you want to add prizes to your program, You can enter in the price here, and we'll talk about how to configure prizes and apply them to programs later, but you'll see here we can just create some prizes. Bookmarks. Probably not bookmarks. I think that's better. All right. Oh, prize descriptions required. Bookmarks for reaching a goal. Entering in prizes just sets the program up. We'll show later how to apply them to a program when we go to actually build a new program. You can control certain aspects of the staff homepage, what fields show up in quick search, what fields show up on the staff homepage. Reviews maintenance. Again, we're covering earlier when we were dealing with the staff homepage and showing how to moderate reviews, we can control which fields show up in this. So let's say you don't want the age field to show up. It's just too much information. Or you don't want the ISBN number to show up because it's too much information. You can control that under reviews maintenance. Certificate setup. If you would like to have certificates of completion or performance that show up for patrons upon meeting certain program goals, whether it's registering or whether it's finishing, you can create an HTML document, which there are instructions for that, how to do that online at evansolutions.com/support. If you just search certificate, I believe if you just search participation certificate, you'll see how to set up patron certificates. There'll be instructions in there. You can enter the URL here, and then patrons will be able to print a certificate that will auto-populate with their data. And there's more complete instructions about that at evansolutions.com/support on the knowledge base. Authentication setup. If you're going to use some kind of SIP system, this is where you would set up your authentication to uniquely identify patrons by library card number. That's something that if you're going to do that, make sure that you have someone that's qualified to deal with the authentication system involved in the process. A lot of times those are secure systems, and some libraries have really strict policies about integrating that with other software. So always make sure that you're getting help from your IT department or from whoever when it comes to authentication setup. And we'll be happy to help you with that, but ultimately that's something that you have to control on your end. I mean, we don't obviously know your library's private authentication setup information. That would be creepy, and so we don't have that information. So that's something that we need your help to set up. Security maintenance. This is where you would reset passwords. There are 4 basic authorization levels. Again, under system settings, if you want to turn on advanced security, you can use usernames, and then you can apply certain roles to different people. But if you want to set any of these 4 basic passwords, you can. Email setup. If you plan on using email, again, much like authentication setup, it's best to run it through your own SMTP server. If you don't know what an SMTP server is, then you're probably not the right person to set up the email section. And I say that with all love. Hopefully that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. But this is one of those pages that if you don't know what you're doing with it, that's totally cool. There's probably somebody in your library that does. And again, it's kind of one of those things that there's only we can help work with you, but we don't know what your SMTP port is, or if you use an SSL connection, or your username or password. There's just some things that you're going to have to supply, either you or your IT department. So if you have any questions on those, talk to your IT department, and you can always direct them, and we'll work directly with them to get email set up. I know some of you probably are in the IT department, and that's good. If you need help, we'll be glad to help you. We just want to make sure that we're helping the correct authorized people as much as possible. There's some things that we can do in terms of program setup. Moving now over to the right-hand side of the screen. For registration, we can populate drop lists. For instance, if we wanted to populate all of the schools in our area, we could do that. Most of these screens are fairly easy. You just type the name in and hit save. And then shortly we'll show how to apply those to a program. I keep promising, oh, we're going to show you. We're going to show you. Yes, we will show you, I promise. Logging types. With logging, remember that you can choose to measure patron reading really in any way that you can think of. The most typical ways are books, pages, minutes, but there's other ways to do it as well. Libraries do 20-minute blocks. We want you to read 20 minutes a day. So every day that you read at least 20 minutes, we want you to come in and log that. You can do authors. If you want to have a list of, read these 5 authors this summer, read these 10 authors, or at least read 5 or 10 different authors, even if we're not going to tell you which ones. Just make sure you're not reading Dean Koontz all summer, or read somebody else once in a while. That would be disturbing if a 5-year-old was reading Dean Koontz, but for teen programs or something like that would definitely be conceivable. You'll see that you can also do things like volunteer hours. This is one of those areas in which if you wanted to use the program for some other purpose other than a reading program, you could set up a custom log type. You'll see library visits. There's all kinds of different ways of conceiving of logging reading, and all you have to do to create it is just type it in. Just imagine what it is and then type it in and click save, and it will show up on that list and you'll be able to apply it to a program. Script entry, if you want to use Google Analytics to track how much your page is being viewed, you can choose to apply scripts to a specific program or to all programs. It's really simple. You just copy the code and paste the code. So whatever code you received, whether it be from Google Analytics or from something else, you would just copy and paste it right in there. And then click save. Couldn't be easier. If you remember the program links section down here, these cool links, if you wanted to build a library of custom links, you could do that right here in program links. You can apply them globally, which means they apply to all your summer reading programs. So that would be like your library homepage, maybe your events calendar. Or you could apply them to specific programs. You just type in the title for the link and type in the URL and click save. And it would save the link, and that link would then appear on your homepage for your patrons to peruse. Program messages works much the same way. If you remember over here, you can have important messages. This is on the patron homepage. Just below the login, you can have important messages that can apply. This first one would apply to all programs, and maybe the second one applies only to specific programs. So here you would click Global Messages, type in, and it would apply to all of your programs. Or type here, and it would apply only to specific programs, while the global message still appears above to identify that it is a global message. Finally, from the system maintenance page, you can also handle reviews and comments, random drawings, and patron information. The same kinds of things you can do from the staff homepage. It's the same activities that we covered in 201. You can also do sort of as a double entry from the system maintenance page. Okay, well, now we're finally to the point where we're going to start building and adding a program. Let me stop. If anybody have any questions, now's a great time to ask. Okay, we've got a question. Hang on. Carla has a question. Give me just one moment to read it. Okay, Carla wants to know if a child reads more than 500 pages to equal, or more than 100 pages to equal one book, is there any way in the system that the system would be able to count 500 pages as 5 books, or would the patron have to add one? Carla, it kind of depends on how you're setting up prizes. You can set up logging in 100-page or less increments. So you can create a logging type that is 100 pages or less. And so if they read, 100 up to 100 pages, that's 1. If they read between 100 and 200, that's 2. 200 and 300, that's 3. So that's definitely an option you can do that way. You can also create levels where if you wanted to measure by 100, if you just wanted them to input, I read 87 pages, but then the program would give them certain prizes or certain credit for reaching cumulatively. So if they read an 87-page book and a 113-page book, that's 300 instead of 200, if that makes sense. You can do it either way. On one way, an 87-page book counts as 1, and a 113-page book counts as, I guess that would work both ways. A 113-page book would count as 2, and they would add up to 3. But there's certain page combinations where they would be really punished. If they read a 198-page book, that still counts as 1. So it kind of depends on the rules that you want to set up. The short answer is yes, you can. But you want to think through some of the logic and some of the consequences of doing that. And that's something that we'd be happy to help you set up. Janice wants to know, how do you change an email and password for administration? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by change an email. Changing the password for administration is easy. You just click on administrator, enter in the current password, and then change it and click save. And that changes the password. Changing the default email for a program, I'll cover that in just a second. We'll see where to add an email program for an email for a specific program, so we can change that as well. But that'll be part of adding a program. Rosemary wants to know, are simultaneous login allowed for staff working on different programs? Yes, that's no problem. There's no limit to how many people can be logged in at once. Lisa says, if you go by book and a patron reads 5 books, will 5 lines pop up to enter those titles, or only 1 line? It depends on how you've set up your logging, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. When we go and do logging setup, Lisa, if I forget to answer that question, remind me, because I will show you how to do that. So the key is to set a maximum that they can only log 1 book at a time. It sort of depends on, the thing with logging is that it's all about what your goals are. If in logging you just want to know how many books they read, you don't really care which books, you're just like, tell me how many books you read. I read 10 books. Well, you can just put in 10 books. But if you really want to track each individual book that they read, there's ways to set up logging so they can only log 1 book at a time. Now, they can log up to 5 times, but they have to do each book individually. And that really just kind of depends on your own wishes, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So I know I tabled a couple of those. Liz wants to enlarge the print. Those are usually settings on your computer. If you hit Control plus, it gets bigger. If you hit Control minus, it gets smaller. So I'll hit Control plus right now, make it a little bit bigger. Hopefully that will help you. That's sort of a monitor setting. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry if that was hard for anybody to see. Good questions, everybody. Again, if I tabled any of your questions and I don't get to it by the end, re-ask it, okay? Let's deal with programs. All right. First, I'm going to show you how to edit a program or bring a program back from the past. If you've used a program before and you've made any of your programs inactive, they'll show up in the inactive programs list, and you can just click on them and you can edit them. And here in General Settings, you can just click Active and then Save, and the program comes back to life. So last summer, if you had a program and you made it, set it to inactive, and you wanted to just bring it back, you can just bring it back. If you want to edit an existing program, you can click Edit Program, choose one of your existing active programs, and edit. And we'll talk through the various settings in a second. Somebody asked about changing the email address for a program. This is where you would do that. So you'd click Edit Program, and it's right there under General Settings, Program Contact Name. So this would be, your name if somebody passed off the program to someone else. So instead of Jane Doe, it was Susie Joe. You type in Susie Joe, and Susie Joe would put in her email address, and you'd click Save. So you do that under Edit Program. Let's work on building a program from scratch. It follows roughly the same template as the Edit Program. We'll click on Add Program. So let's walk through this step by step. And again, at any point along the way, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Because this is an admin level class, I want to make sure to get all of your questions answered. It's not really like at the 201 where you can ask something that's too advanced. There are some things that kind of have to be worked out individually, thinking through some logging settings and things like that. But as much as possible, I'm going to try to answer all the questions specifically this afternoon. Thanks for being patient with me. I have to stop and take a drink every once in a while. This is a lot of talking all in one sitting, so I have to keep the throat a little lubricated, or it's going to get scratchy. Okay, the general settings. First, do I want the program to be active or not? When you're building your program for the first time, it's not a bad idea to set it to no. That way it's not showing up anywhere on the public side. It's just something that we're working on, that we're kind of keeping in the background. So we're going to set this program to no. And we're going to create a contact name, which will be me, and my address. So we're going to name our program. And we'll have an abbreviation for it. I'm not going to overthink this. We're going to describe the program. We're going to be hyper-literal today. Now, if I want to create eligibility requirement, such as only kids between the ages of 6 and 9 are eligible, only people over 18 are eligible, this is where I would enter that information, and it would appear in this general area right here. There we go. Open to all ages. My instructional text can be, whatever I feel like it needs. Sign up today by clicking the button and filling out all the fields. Again, the instructional text kind of depends on if there's any specific rules, if there's anything you're doing unusual, like if you're not having patrons register in the library online, but you still set up your summer reading page to sort of advertise the program. Maybe your instructional text says, come into the library and register today, or something like that. So your instructional text can meet whatever specific needs you have. So here, under registration settings, first I would choose whether to allow patrons to register or not. Again, I can choose no if I want to, and no would simply mean that they have to register in the library with a librarian who would sign them up. Doesn't mean you can't register anyone. It just means they can't register themselves. So registration start date, I can control that if I want. So maybe you want to make your program be live and visible May 1st, but you don't want people to sign up till June 1st. There can be reasons to do that, especially if a program is really popular, really well known. In general, however, I tend to find that people forget about stuff that they can't do right away. You know, if somebody's on your summer reader site, they want to sign up, so let them sign up. You know, if you're going to have it up there, you might as well allow them to be able to participate in it. If you want to have a registration end time, you can. This needs to be 2012, I think. Registration type. There are two different ways that you can do registration, either for individuals, each person has their own password and username, or groups. Groups would be if a whole class was going to record their reading at once. So instead of recording the reading for every student in Mrs. Smith's class, you could have just a group called Mrs. Smith's class, and then the students would come in and they would record their reading, and it would just count towards one giant group total as opposed to individual totals. You can do login type where it's just based on their library card. Again, this is something that applies if you have a SIP system. In the case of our practice program, we've used, I'll show you our duplicates, I think this, but yeah, you'll see we've used some dummy numbers a few times. So if you've done that, then the system won't let you use library cards anymore because you've used the number a bunch of times for a bunch of different names. Typically, it's best to use username unless you're going to do some kind of authentication with your library card. So again, you can set authentication type, not used, optional, or required. Again, eligibility requirement, are we basing it based on age, our minimum and maximum ages, based on grade? Classification would be another way of looking at it. Classifications can be infants, youth, adult. You know, obviously, if you're doing an adult program, you don't want to ask people's ages. You know, like maybe you want to have classifications like young adults, parents, singles, seniors, you know, something other than, hey ma'am, how old are you? That might not fly. So setting up patron classifications is a way to handle that a little more delicately, perhaps. Or you can have no eligibility requirement whatsoever. Family registration is something that is a great tool. And I strongly recommend that you do family registration if you're doing any kind of program for younger readers. Family registration allows a mom or dad to sign up with one username and password and add kids to their account. So it's still tracking each member of the family individually. So let's take my family, for example. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. They're not doing a lot of logging on their own at this age. My 7-year-old maybe could, but my 5-year-old, my 3-year-old are probably not going to type in the books that they've read for their summer reading program. But if my wife wanted to take them to the library, she could sign up for one account under her name with a password, and then she can keep track of what books they've read or what books she's read to them. So Ellie would have an account, Scott would have an account, my daughter Luce would have an account, but Deb wouldn't have to remember, 4 sets of usernames and passwords, one for each kid and one for herself. She could just log in as herself, and then a little menu would drop down, and she could choose, oh, no, now I want to log Ellie, now I want to log Scott. So, it's really good for parents of multiple kids and parents of young kids. Obviously, it gives the parent a lot of control then over the child's account as well. So it's a great tool, strongly recommend it. Obviously it's not great for a teen program necessarily, but or an adult program, but it's really good for younger children programs. Some other things I want to call your attention to on the setup screen. Let's scroll down to look at Facebook integration. Facebook integration is a great tool to draw attention to your summer reader site. If turned on, it gives patrons the option of sharing their information on Facebook. You cannot make a patron share information on Facebook. you can give them the choice. If you turn it off, they have no choice. And obviously turning it off might be appropriate for kids under 5. Actually kids under 10, I don't think anyone's allowed to have a Facebook account until age 12 or something like that. So for younger readers, maybe, yeah, you want to turn it off. You don't want them sharing on Facebook. They shouldn't even have a Facebook account. But for, teens and adults, then Facebook integration can be a great tool. You can change the language here. Do you want to add information to Facebook? Pretty simple. You can configure what gets added to Facebook, their log entries, their review entries, whether they register. There's no reviews set up on this, so it's not an option right now. You can configure the way that message appears. You'll see there's certain tags that you can use that will auto-populate with the information. So patrons can choose to share, hey, I've read 5 books in my library's summer reading program, and the system would auto-populate that information. Facebook is a great way to let your patrons do the heavy lifting for you. You can't get out and tell everybody in town about your summer reading program, but you'd be amazed how fast news travels over Facebook. So if it's age appropriate, strongly recommend turning Facebook configuration on. And again, you're not making anyone share anything. You're just letting them choose to share stuff. All right, let's cover some. Okay, we had a question real quick. Janice wants to know, in family registration, what if only, say, 2 or 3 family members meet a goal? Do the 2 that have reached the goal win the prize and the other does not? Yeah. Janice, family registration gives them individual accounts. They're not a group account. Each child has their own account, but they are accessed with one username and password. A group account is, it's all or nothing. Everybody's in the same pot. Our class wins a prize or our class does not win a prize. I as an individual don't matter except in as much as my total counts toward the prize. Family registration is very different from that. Family registration is each kid is an individual entity, but they don't have their own username and password. Only mom does. I hope that makes sense. So each kid succeeds or doesn't meet requirements based upon their own reading. Great. Thanks. Good question. Okay, let's take a look at logging settings real quick. Now we'll get into answering hopefully some of these questions. I'm having a hard time remembering everything that was asked, so if in covering this I forget something that was asked, remind me. You can turn patron logging off if you want. Patron logging, if turned off, requires the patron to come into the library and talk to a librarian to log. And that's, an absolutely valid way of doing it. A lot of libraries like that kind of contact. So it's sort of a way to, beat fraud, I guess. If you're worried about patrons just artificially inflating what they read, you're making the kid walk in and talk to Mrs. Jones and look her square in the eye and say, Mrs. Jones, I read a book. It's a little harder to lie to somebody if you look them in the eye. So you can turn off patron logging if you want, but if you have it on, you can have them choose the date that they use or not, and you can choose when to start logging. So you don't have to start logging the same day that you allow registration. So if you remember earlier, my registration began June 1st, so maybe my logging starts June 7th. Again, you can control the time of day if you like. And logging ends, the program officially ends September 1st. There doesn't have to be a gap between when logging starts and when registration starts. Sometimes if you're kind of doing more high-stakes prizes or things like that, you don't want to give anybody a head start or something. That would be an example of a time where you might want to have registration like June 1st to 7th, and then logging begins at midnight on June 8th, and they're off and away they go. That if you wanted to do some kind of setup like that, you have that option. Now we're going to cover how to set up reviews. Reviews can be handled on a log page entry, and what that means is when the patron logs into the program, let's see if I can remember. There's usually somebody in here called test and test. Doesn't look like it in this case. When the patron logs into the program and goes to log in their books, they log a review at the same time. So the system would say, hey, do you want to enter a review? You can also have reviews done on the home page, which means there's a separate button here that says log or enter a review. It all depends on whether you want reviews to be intertwined with logging or separate from logging. And that's not one of those questions that I can answer for you. It's kind of up to your own institutional needs. What a lot of libraries do is they mix logging and reviews together as a way of checking up what the patron read. So if you're going to say, I read a book, then they will require a review at the same time. Okay, Sonny, you read a book? Tell me about it. Give me 500 words on it. And obviously, if you have a 10-year-old and they've clearly copied and pasted their review off the Amazon.com description or something, then you'll be able to tell by the language or whatever that they've done it incorrectly. So that patron reviews can be, as I said, they can be turned off altogether. They can be handled with logging, or they can be handled separately from logging. Again, separate entry for reviews. Whether patrons have access after the fact to their reviews, whether you want to enable a specific reading list for your program, whether reviews are to be mediated. If you remember from the 201, mediated reviews do not show up on the public page until you have approved them. I strongly advise you, especially with younger readers, turn on mediated reviews. There are always going to be people, especially young people, they're going to want to cause a little havoc and use a little potty mouth or whatever. And if you have mediated reviews off, you can have some nasty language show up on your site. If you turn it on, no one will see those reviews until you've seen them first. Liz says, what if you want a review for just one program and that is for teens and not for kids? Yeah, Liz, reviews are set per program. These are nothing on this page is system-wide. These are targeted at specific programs. So you can have a program that has reviews, a teen program that has reviews on, and you can have another program for kids that has reviews off. You can have unmoderated or unmediated reviews for adults and mediated views for teens. It's all a matter of building separate programs for each individual class of person. What you can't do is have two sets of rules within the same program. So I can't build one program and have it be teens enter reviews, but children don't enter reviews. The system can't do that. And there's really no reason for it to. If you're going to want to have different rules, that's the whole point of having different programs. There's plenty of ways to, you can share prizes between programs. There's all kinds of other things you can do to meet the same kind of goals, but having different rules for different age groups is just, it's the real motivation behind having age-specific programs. Hope that answers your question. You can choose to have reviews be rated or not rated. That's just a little star that goes along with it. And you can choose to have comments on reviews or not. Same general principle. If you have reviews, comments, especially for younger readers, please turn mediation on. Mediation would mean that no one would see that comment, including the person whose review was being commented on. No one would see it until you saw it. So if it was mean, if it was hateful, if there was cyberbullying, if there was just general tomfoolery, then you would have the chance to control that ahead of time. A really bad combination is young readers with unmediated comments and anonymous comments. That's just a bad mix. Anonymous comments have their place. They can lead to sort of a more invigorated discussion, especially among adults. People don't always feel, comfortable sharing their opinion on books in a public way. So there's a time and a place for anonymous comments, but it's not on your 8-year-old's reading program. That's just one of those life rules. I could cross stitch that on a pillow maybe. Anonymous comments aren't for 8-year-old summer reading programs. So just be careful with your settings. Make sure that there's some common sense applied. And do you even need to have comments on little kids' book reviews? Probably not. But for teens, maybe you want to. Maybe you want to encourage a healthy give and take, a positive online environment, give kids a good experience. So there's a time and place for them. It's just choose it carefully. That's all. Okay, so moving on down, homepage settings. Logout destination URL is the page that when the user logs out, what does it refer back to? Lisa has a question about certificates. If patrons get to print their own certificates, does that certificate PDF have to be hosted somewhere other than eVanced? She says, in other words, do I have to have certificates live on my library site? Yes. No, you can host them anywhere you want. You can host them with eVanced as well. If you have certificates that you want hosted, you can send them to us, and we will create a folder for you within your Summer Reader site, and you can use a URL based on that. You don't have to store them on your own private library site. You can give them to us, and we'll send you back a URL to input. The second question is, can you moderate anonymous comments? Yes, you can. You can always moderate comments. Good questions. You guys are doing a great job today. I'm really impressed. Good questions. Good interaction. We've got a good group going on. So here's the question. Do we allow patrons to print certificates? And so we can set when, what certificate's available. Do they get a certificate when they're prize eligible, when they've met a minimum quantity? So let's say they read 20 books. Congratulations, you read 20 books. We can control how many reviews show up on the home page at one time, whether we're displaying them by most recent or random. RSS options are create a feed that patrons can subscribe to using an RSS reader that will track program messages or program stats or reviews that will update automatically for them. And that's just a feature for patrons. Events XML feed. Let me say a word about this. If you have our events software from eVanced, if you know what that is, if you're a subscriber, you can log into the events software. If you don't have events, then this won't apply to you. You can leave that field blank. You can go to calendar registration, RSS feed, copy the link up here in the link, and you can paste it right in here. And that is what populates this list of events. You can build custom links to only show programs that are relevant to the age group of the program if you like. You just copy and paste that link right in here. The only change you need to make is you want to find the section that says DM equals RSS2 and delete it. I know that probably went by really fast, and I'll be happy to help you with it afterwards. But again, you go to Events, Calendar Registration, RSS feed, copy the link, and paste it in the Events XML feed, taking out DM equals RSS2. And that creates an events feed that will show up on your program homepage right here on the left and look very nice and notify patron of all the events, and that will automatically populate with new events as you enter them. Okay, let's talk about, we got a question. Lisa wants to know if you can use an RSS link from another event software provider. You can try. Well, the field only takes XML feeds. It does not take RSS feeds. We haven't had a lot of success with other XML feeds working. There was one in particular. I'm trying to remember. Event Keeper, maybe. Does that sound like something that exists? Some users have tried it with Event Keeper, and it doesn't. It's not compatible. But you're welcome to try. If you have an XML feed from your event software, you can try it. But I can't guarantee that it'll actually function. It's designed to work with our events feed. But you're welcome to try. The primary log type settings. Okay. Oh, wait. You got another question? Engage patrons. Lisa, I don't know. I've never tried that one. Give it a try. It doesn't hurt to try. Just copy in the XML feed. Again, make sure it's not an RSS, but rather an XML feed, and see if it works. And if it works, awesome. Please let me know. I would love to add it to the list. Yeah, I know Event Keeper does not work, so I haven't tried it with Engaged or Enraged. Okay, primary log type settings. So first we're going to choose the logging type. Remember back on that home page before where I was adding the logging type? This is where I would add it. So if I wanted to add a new logging type, let's try to do the one that we talked about earlier. Let's try 100-page increments. Okay, so now I've saved that. It'll show up in my list. I think this page needs refreshed. I think I've gone back and forth so much that my my session on this particular page has timed out. We'll see if it's still gonna work. One of the hazards of doing this over a long period of time and bouncing back before all these pages is I think my session timed out, so it's not going to populate this list like I wanted to. We'll choose 5 book sets instead. If we set a patron logging restriction, we could say they can only do one at a time. So this would answer the question about instead of having, how many lines would there be? We'll just do books. So this would force them to do one book at a time. Okay, they won't be able to enter 5. They can only do one book at a time. We can set a maximum for the whole program. They can only read up to 50 books. How many per entry? Okay, that would be one at a time. How many per day? We could say up to 10 a day, just to set a limit to keep them from logging 500. Just going in one time, trying to fake it all out. You can set a program goal for the so you could say 35 books. That's the goal. You can allow patrons to have their own goals if you want. So yeah, that's how you would control logging. So if you wanted to do pages, you could do increments of up to 100 pages. So the maximum quantity that they could do would be 200. So this would basically give patrons the choice of how many pages, they were going to log at once. Instead of logging, one page, they would have to log pages in 100-page increments if you wanted to do it like that. There's just different ways that you can set up logging according to the goals and needs of your program. We'll turn prizes on. We'll have for every one book, we'll have 25 prize levels going all the way up from an eraser to some more fancy and exciting prize. And we can set prizes based on how many per week, per month, whether the prize level refers to the entire program. There's other ways you can set up prizes, non-linear, so like every 1, 4, 7, 9, just something that just isn't linear. Daily goals, and then just manual prize levels. You can do secondary logging types if you wish. secondary logging types would come into play like this. Let's say you were going to do books and time. You wanted to track how many books people read, but also how much time they spent reading. So your primary logging type would be books, and your secondary logging type could be minutes. So you're going to track both things because you want both pieces of data. How much time are kids spending reading, and how many books are they actually reading? And you can choose to give prizes based on that as well. Then at the bottom, you can choose to have registration prizes and whether there's a prize for reaching a primary goal. See if this program validates. I changed so many things. Prize level must be a number. Go back and make it interval of 1 book. There we go. We've now saved our New Jersey test program. We're going to apply a language to it. Now, this is something to pay attention to. If my languages are real spoken languages, like English and Espanol, I can do it like that. A drop-down menu will appear on the program, and the reader will be able to choose English or Spanish. But please pay attention to this because it will save you a lot of headaches, this next piece of advice. If you are adding a specific text language, like youth language or children's language to the program, right now, this program would have a drop-down menu that would say English and one that would say children's program. We don't want that. That will get confusing. So you add the text that you want, you click default, then remove English. As much as possible, avoid having multiple languages that are in English on the same program. It will get confusing because they'll hit a drop-down menu and it'll say one thing, and then they'll change the language and it'll say something else, and that will be confusing. It makes sense intuitively if the drop-down menu is English or Spanish, or English and French and German, but if it's youth language, children's program, and English, that will confuse everyone. Okay? So if you add a language that's in English, but you're just adding custom text, take English off. Okay? Don't have multiple English versions on the same site. You'll thank me. Okay, now we're going to set up program registration. We can choose to add all these fields, but we don't have to. You can enable fields, which means they appear on the registration list, or you can require them if you like, which means the person has to answer. List basically forces them to choose options off of a drop-down list. Search gives you the ability to search for groups that are already existing in the program. Liz wants to know, can you have a children's program and youth language? Yeah, you can. You can have one you can do that. You can have a children's program with a youth language. It's best to apply youth language to youth programs. Like if you wanted to just have one generic language text that you apply to all non-adult programs, yeah, you can do that. Like the youth language would then apply to children's, to young adults, to teens. It applies to everybody but seniors, for example. Yeah, you can totally do that. That's totally fine. It's best not to have youth language and children's language on the same program, if that's clear, because those are both English language texts, and people will flip back and forth, and they'll be confusing. It's best to only have one English language text. You can have one language text apply to various programs, but not best to have two language texts apply to the same program unless they're actual foreign languages. You can do it. You can absolutely do anything you want to. It's just a matter of how many headaches it'll cause down the road. So yeah, you can do, if you wanted to have one program with senior language, youth language, children's language, Farsi, you could do whatever you wanted. It's just there are unintended consequences sometimes for making those choices. As we scroll down the registration questions. You can have very simple registration fields that are just, group names, participants, you group only if groups enabled. You can have custom fields if you want. You can add schools, teachers. You can do all kinds of custom questions. You don't have to. Again, your registration can be real simple. Your first and last name and your library card, or just your first and last name if you want. But they can also be very complex and detailed. So we'll save these registration settings. Now for log entry, the same thing. I can ask this first category right here, log entry. Again, I'm choosing what fields are enabled, what are required, what are going to show up in the log summary, and then what fields are going to be available on my mobile version. So quantity is just, how many books, whether I'm going to require a review or not. So I could not require the review. I could not enable the review. I could choose to ask for the author, the title, the genre, anything else. What was your favorite character in the book? What was the plot of the book? Whatever kind of custom question you like, you can edit and create. And again, you can apply those. You can enable them, just turning them on, or you can require them. And you can require that at the log entry setting or at the review entry level. Again, if you've separated reviews and logging out from each other so they're not connected, you can require those separately on reviews. So this is where you would set up and change your log entry. If there's something on the reviews that you want to, like, one person had reviews enabled, but they forgot to check title. So the title was never showing up on the reviews. Well, that's where you go in here and you check enabled and required. They have to enter the title of the book. Public is the choice whether or not to make the review, the information public. So if you uncheck that, then they won't have the option to make those public. Okay, so now we've set up the program. And I have an inactive program. So I'm going to make it active. I'm going to show you guys what I've done real quick. We're in the home stretch, guys. We're almost done. So I'm going to save my active program. And now it's going to show up here in my tabs if I hit refresh. There it is. Nice little tab, NJTP. Now remember, all of these are all pretty and they have these nice templates. Let's look at what I've created. It's hideous. My program looks awful. Well, the good news is applying styles to programs and making them look nice is very, very easy. So you have to go into that program, and I messed up the feed. I'm going to take the feed out first. We have custom templates that apply to all of our programs. If you're a member of the CSLP, the Collaborative Summer Literacy Program, then you can get one of these nice styles. You just have to write us and say, hey, I'm a member of CSLP. If you're not, we have some advanced custom themes that we've made. To apply a template to a program, I click Page Editor. I'm here on the Summer Reader. Sorry, I'm on the System Maintenance page. I'll go to Page Editor. I will pick my program from the list, NJTP. There it is. Now I'm going to load a template. And there's a bunch of templates in here. I'm going to do People Beach, which and there we go. It's loaded a template. So now when I click on NJTP, it should, I forgot to hit save, sorry. There we go. Now, there we go. Now my program doesn't look so hideous. The process for that again was Page Editor. I selected the program. I clicked Load. I selected Template. And then I chose a template from the list. If your list doesn't have the CSLP templates on, email us at support@evansolutions.com if you're a CSLP member, and we'll give you those. Or if you want help getting the new pretty advanced templates up, there will be some already preloaded, but you can apply either one of the ones that exist, or we'll tell you how to add some new ones. So you choose the template, click All Pages, load it. There we go. And click Save. And now my program has loaded a new template. And just like that, I can make my program not look hideous. So that's the final step, is loading a template and making the program look nice. Okay, that covers the 301 level questions. I'm happy to field any questions that you have. Why did the tabs shift when you changed the template? Because each template has its own way of dealing with tabs. If you want to make changes to templates, to the way your program looks, you don't have to use our set templates. This page editor gives you access to the CSS styles. CSS stands for Cascade Style Sheets, and those control the way the program, the way a web page interprets the information. If you know what CSS is and you're CSS savvy and that's something you know and you want to build your own custom look and feel to the page, you can. So Leah, if you wanted to move those templates, those tabs around and make them move to the left or the right or up or down or change the colors, if you knew how to do CSS, that's available for you. We give you access to the CSS style sheets. It's for advanced users. It's for people that kind of know what they're doing with CSS. If you don't know how to do CSS, then you know it's probably best not to invest the hours in learning it just to change the color of a tab. It's there for people that really get into web design. So we give you access to it. And again, this is kind of goes into one of those. You can do anything you want to with the program. It's just a question of you know, is it necessary? Is that someplace you want to go? So the tabs are controlled by the CSS styling, and actually right here, see tabs, and there's different rules for them, and you can click on them, and if you know CSS code, you could input the information there and change their color or move them around. Other questions? Again, we'll be having a session next Friday at 1 to cover some reader questions. If you're ready to have a site built, if you don't already have one, email us at support@evansolutions.com. If you want to watch the session again on YouTube, yeah, obviously a canned version of it, you can go to evansolutions.com, click Support, go to Summer Reader, Training, Videos, and Session 301 is right here with YouTube videos broken up into smaller chunks so you can rewatch sections that maybe went by a little too fast. Again, I will be covering all of this information. This session will be it's been recorded, and I'll be posting it online later on this afternoon. I will be sending those links to Sharon Rollins, I think, and she'll be distributing them to all of you guys. So you can watch this session again. You can watch these generic YouTube videos. You can sign up for any of our pre-existing webinars. Again, support@evansolutions.com, and click on the calendar and see the list of available webinars. And there's a Summer Reader 301 next Thursday, and then on Friday, none of the New Jersey private trainings show up on our calendar because it's a public calendar, but there will be a special one next Friday to sit and answer any of your questions. So I'm happy to hang out and answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, the session is done. I thank you guys for coming. I hope it was helpful, and support@evansolutions.com via email, and we'll answer your questions. Good, Carl. I'm really glad to hear that. I'm encouraged by that. Good. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you, Liz and Lisa. You're welcome, Janice. Thank you. If anyone has any more questions, I'm all ears. I'm here to help. So if there's stuff I can do, thanks, Kim. You guys can just sit and compliment me and thank me all for the for the next half hour. That's all. That's fine with me too. I can sit and listen to that. But if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. Thank you, Susan. Okay, Leah has a question. She erased data from last year's summer reading program, but not the names. So where does she look up in a patron's log now that they're no longer under the program? She knows they're listed in their summer. Good question, Leah. That's a great question. Let's go to our home page. So we can just search all programs. You should be able to just find their logs won't be there. Okay. You've eliminated their logs, so like you won't have access if you erased their data. They exist in your system as a name, but they don't have any other information other than their registration information, right? Just their login with their username. You should be able to search all programs, and it should come up for you. That should be how you would find their username, password, username. And reset their password, give them the password from last year. And now, obviously, if you clicked on the specific program, by the way, if you clicked on a program and searched this program, you won't find them there. So you have to, try it again. You should be able to find them in the search all programs. There's a big difference between search all programs and search the specific program. I'm going to delete my ugly program. Janice asks, once a program is set up, do you need to make all the changes from the same computer you originally used? No, not at all. You just log in from the Summer Reader staff homepage with your admin level password from any computer, and you can make changes by clicking on the little wrench. Or you can go to System Maintenance, Edit Program, choose a program from the list. You can do that from any computer. Leslie has a question. If one school has a specific summer reading list that you wanted to include them in the New Jersey Summer Reading Program, how would you do that? A couple different ways you could do that, Leslie. If you didn't want to build a custom instance just for them, like a custom program just for School 84 or something like that, you could add a book list. Let's see, I believe that would be in, if we went to logging setup, we could go to, there we go, title, and then the list field, and we could add a list of books there for them to choose from. And if we checked list, that list would appear. The tricky part is I think if you check book list, it limits everybody's choices only to the things on that list. So it might be a little tricky, Leslie, to do. You'd be limiting everybody in that program just to that book list. What you could do is you could just copy. Let me show you how to copy a program real quick. If you wanted to do a specific instance just for a specific school, you could do it like this. You could go Edit Program, Dream Big Youth. So I have my regular version. I could click Copy Program. I'll give it a name. J.J. Bingham School Program. I would save my copy. And now it shows up in the list. And then the only setting I would have to change would be to go in and add that book list. So they would have their own instance without, really in like 3 minutes, you could set up a specific program just for that school. So users at just that school could go in and participate in summer reading and just read off a certain book list. So it wouldn't be all that onerous to do that. But it's really hard to integrate a school's book list into a general program without limiting everybody who participates to that book list. Although what you could do, come to think of it, Leslie, I think of another way around it. You could have a custom question that says, are you a student at J.J. Bingham School? And then a sub-question, because you can do sub-questions, and the sub-question could be choose a book from this list if you are. So you know what? There actually is a way to do it. You just have to do it with custom questions. You'd have to kind of, yeah, actually, I think maybe we could set that up. I've been teaching for the last hour and a half. You're testing my creative capabilities here, but I think let's go into logging setup. We'll do custom question. Do you go to school X? And it would be yes or no. Okay, here we go. If so, pick a book from this list. And then you could have a list. And we'd have to do a name descriptor list. And now we can edit the list. Yeah, there we go. And we would create the book list. So there you go. Yes, you can. You absolutely can do that. Does that make sense, Leslie? Did you see how I did that? I just created a custom question and made a list. So you could. Now you couldn't, you'd be limited to how many times you can do that in the same program. Like you couldn't, it would be really hard to come up with a list for every single school in a district. But if you were working with one specific school, you could do that. Any other questions? I thank you guys so much for coming. For questions, we're going once. We're going twice. Thank you all. I'm going to stop recording then. And again, I will make this available online for later use. Thank you all. I hope you have a great day.